CBS. Welcome home.
Out of nowhere, it seems, a mystery army of Islamic fundamentalists calling themselves the Taliban has swept with lightning speed through this country right into this capital, Kabul. Armed with the Quran and the Kalashnikov, they are mostly illiterate. Here they call them a peasant army, imposing its own harsh brand of religious law, where a woman can be beaten if she's not covered from head to toe when she leaves her house, and anyone caught stealing has his hand cut off. Tonight, we'll take you there.
For 11 years, Jessica Fletcher, also known as Angela Lansbury, was 60 Minutes Sunday night neighbor. And then last year, she was evicted.
All hell broke loose.
The show fell from a secure top 10 position to finish its last year in 57th place.
It amazed us. It surprised us. It shocked us.
Did friendly, neutral Switzerland trade in Nazi gold looted from Hitler's victims? And are Swiss banks still hiding hundreds of millions deposited by Jews who died in the Holocaust? That's the allegation of thousands of families here and in Europe.
Switzerland bought its neutrality by its dealings with the Nazi government. Switzerland acquired a great amount of wealth from people and never returned it.
Everybody took for granted that we would all disappear and they could just help themselves.
I'm Mike Wallace.
I'm Morley Safer.
I'm Ed Bradley. I'm Steve Croft.
I'm Leslie Stahl. Those stories and Andy Rooney tonight on 60 Minutes.
We begin with a report from Christiane Amanpour of CNN, who's just returned from Afghanistan on assignment for 60 Minutes.
They call themselves the Taliban, loosely translated, seekers of wisdom, seeking to establish their version of a true Islamic state. A state where a thief can have a hand cut off, an adulterer can be stoned to death. A woman is forbidden to work outside the home, and if she does venture out without being covered from head to toe, she can be hit with a rifle butt. Their code is so extreme that even Iran says they give Islam a bad name. Where is this happening? In Afghanistan, the country into which the United States poured more than $3 billion in the 1980s to save it from the Soviets. This is where an invading Soviet army met its final test and lost. It is where a superpower and the Cold War began to die. But instead of glory, Afghanistan reaped more war. After US-backed rebels kicked out the Red Army, they turned against each other, and this place fell off the world's radar screen until now. For the past 5 years, the one-time freedom fighters blasted away at each other and their countrymen, with killing power left by the Soviets and the Americans. Tens of thousands died. The capital, Kabul, which had survived the Soviets, was torn apart by the Afghans themselves. Then, on September 27th, seemingly out of nowhere, a mystery army called the Taliban swept in to capture this capital. When the Taliban entered Kabul, their first statement was heard around the world. Here, on this square, they publicly hanged Najibullah, the puppet president left by the departing Soviets. He'd been hiding out here for years. That out of the way, armed with the Quran and the Kalashnikov, they then introduced their own harsh brand of Islam to the people of Kabul. Not just closing down movie theaters, but torching the film, gutting music cassettes, smashing statues, crushing the demon liquor, and forcing all men into the mosques to pray, ordering them to grow beards, threatening the most brutal punishments. But it's the Afghan women who have borne the brunt of the new draconian code. If they venture into the street, this is their view of the world. They are ordered to cover their body from head to toe.
Like this.
If you're wondering why I can walk around not covered from head to foot, it's because the rules are more relaxed for Western women. But if Afghan women don't comply, the punishment is beating or prison. But you don't see that many women in public these days because they've been banished from offices and schools. The principal at this high school in Kabul once directed the education of thousands of female students. Now there are none. They've all been sent home. Authorities say the purpose is to keep the sexes apart, and they promise new schools. But this was already an all-girls school. I asked a 10-year-old girl called Aziza about her ambitions. She told me she hopes one day to become a teacher. She'd like to remain in school, but now she spends all day at home doing what the Taliban expect of her: cleaning house, washing the dishes, and baking bread. A 5-minute drive from the girls' school is the boys' school, and it's full of students. Many in this crowd have mixed feelings about the Taliban, but all of them told me their sisters are not at all happy with the new rulers. Do you have sisters?
Yes, why not, sure.
And what are they doing now? Are they school age?
My sister was in university, but now she's at home. She's very unhappy about her lessons, about her university, about her future.
And what about boys and girls dating? That's frowned on too. Your girlfriends? Do you have girlfriends?
Yes, why not, sure.
Outside? Can you go out with your girlfriend? No way, he says. Shia Mohammed Stanakzai is the deputy foreign minister of the Taliban government. He told me the world doesn't really understand what the Taliban are up to. Eventually, they want to provide education for all, he says, but in an Islamic way.
The girls, they can go to school, but provided they go in proper dress. And one thing more should be remembered, that in our religion, men and women, they cannot get together. Schools, in universities, and even in offices. They should be separated from each other.
But Mr. Stanakzai, many of the schools here in Kabul were segregated. Women went to certain schools, young girls went to certain schools, and boys went to another. So what is it going to take?
Actually, we have many problems. We would like to bring peace and security in the entire country. And after that, we would like to create such a situation so that under those conditions, men and women, they can be educated.
They may claim they're going to make changes, but the immediate effect of banishing women from the workplace has been devastating. Hospitals, for instance, were already desperately short-staffed, and many female doctors and nurses are simply afraid to come to work. At this crowded government orphanage in Kabul, the younger boys are now being taken care of by young orphan girls. The teachers who used to do the job have been sent home, and the only females who dare stay and work are 2 cleaning women. International aid agencies, public and private, have also been hit hard by the restrictions on women. Oxfam, for instance, is largely staffed by women. Sue Emmett, its director in Afghanistan, has suspended all Oxfam operations there in protest at what's happening to her female staff.
And I think it's a combination of feelings for them. It's humiliation, it's degradation, it's anger, deep anger, and frustration that they can't do anything. To go to their houses then and see them, as one of them said, like caged animals, it destroys so much of what was good.
Zakira works for Oxfam. She's a university graduate. Like tens of thousands of other Afghan women, she's been crippled twice. First by the war. Shrapnel from a rocket tore off her leg and her arm. And now she says she's been crippled by the Taliban.
For someone like me who's educated and disabled and now has to stay home, death would be better for us right now. What should we do with our lives?
A lot of women are now unable to go to their work and either too afraid to go to their work. How are they meant to support themselves?
Most of them, they were working at their home, like sewing and knitting, these things, so they can do that, they can carry with that.
But what about office workers?
They should be sitting in their home and they will be paid at their home.
But you know how poor the people are here. The government, you say, doesn't have the money to subsidize them.
They have been already promised by the government that whatever they were getting from the government, they will be paid at their home now.
The problem is there's no money. The country is broke. The government doesn't even have enough to pay its policemen. And the women we spoke with said that even if the government could pay them to stay at home, there's no way they'd accept.
It is not a question of money. That is not what's important to us. We want our basic rights, like women in all other countries.
What role will strict Islam have in the future of this country, and particularly the Sharia law that calls for methods such as amputations for robbery, stoning for adultery? What role will that have here?
Afghanistan is an Islamic state, and our rules and regulation will be according to Islamic rules. If the man has been caught that he is in theft cases or he is in robbery cases, there is certain that his hand will be cut. And the other people, when they see him that his hand was cut, they will never do the same thing.
And stoning women?
I told you that an Islamic government which is coming on power, they will be stuck to Islamic rules and regulation, whatever is there.
So, does that mean yes?
I mean to say whatever is in Islam, in the rules and regulation, the punishment which is there for anyone, that will be implemented. We will be stuck to that.
But there are many Muslims who argue that what the Taliban are preaching has nothing to do with Islam. The Taliban come mainly from the impoverished countryside. Most of them are young and poorly educated. What knowledge they do have of Islam is rudimentary, picked up at militant training camps. Amir Taheri is an expert on the region. The Taliban claims to be students, but they have sophisticated airplanes, weapons, training. Who are they and who backs them?
They were recruited in 1994 by the Pakistani secret services and started training in camps. They invaded Afghanistan from a point at the border.
There was almost no resistance. Their countrymen had become fed up with the endless carnage, the constant violence, death and corruption under the rival Mujahideen warlords. The Taliban also reportedly received large sums of money from Saudi Arabia and some of the Gulf states. As for the United States, their officials seemed to welcome the Taliban taking Kabul, even after they'd hanged Najibullah and cracked down on women. Glyn Davis is a State Department spokesman.
We've seen some of the reports that they've moved to impose Islamic law in the areas that they control, but at this stage we're not reading anything into that. I mean, there's on the face of it nothing objectionable at this stage.
A week later, State Department officials began to back off. But why had they seemed to favor the Taliban in the first place? Because they believed the Taliban would help them with two big problems. One of them, international terrorism.
Afghanistan is the biggest center of terrorist activities. The people who blow up the Americans in Al-Khobar in Saudi Arabia were trained in Afghanistan. Then there is the question of heroin.
Indeed, Afghanistan's vast poppy fields have become a huge source of heroin, and the country is now the world's second largest producer.
The Pakistanis told the Americans that the Taliban can solve both problems because most of the heroin is produced in Taliban-controlled areas and most of the terrorist camps were also in their areas. This is why the Americans started having good feelings towards the Taliban. It was very attractive. It just doesn't work.
For instance, though the Taliban claims to be shutting down the heroin industry, many experts say they're actually profiting from it, collecting a 20% tax on every kilo produced. And where does this opium and heroin go to?
Mostly to Europe and the United States.
Even as the Taliban battle to hold on to the capital Kabul, they are demanding to be recognized by Europe and the United States and the rest of the world as Afghanistan's legitimate government.
I think I said before that the word is misunderstanding us. The human right. Actually, we are the only people who is observing strictly the human rights.
That kind of double talk has plagued Afghanistan for the past 20 years, right up to today. From the Soviets, who said they would save Afghanistan, from the Americans, who said they would save Afghanistan, and now from the Taliban, who claim they have.
The Taliban takeover in Kabul may not be as entrenched as it looks. 3 opposition groups have united and counterattacked. They're said to be within a dozen miles of the capital.
For 11 years, Jessica Fletcher, also known as Angela Lansbury, was 60 Minutes Sunday night neighbor. And then last year, she moved out. Well, she didn't exactly move out. She was evicted. CBS, in an effort to attract a younger crowd to the neighborhood, decided she was, let's say, demographically undesirable. So Murder, She Wrote moved from its traditional Sunday night slot to Thursday nights. And
all hell broke loose.
Angela Lansbury was furious.
You knew it wasn't going to work. Oh, of course. Of course we knew. It amazed us. It surprised us. It shocked us. We could have told them that Sunday night can never be anything other than a family night, because it has been for all these years.
Murder, She Wrote broke a lot of records. It was the highest-rated drama series for 9 consecutive seasons. 43 other shows went against it and were clobbered. And to millions of adoring fans, Angela Lansbury became Jessica Fletcher.
She's a feisty broad, much more so than I am. She's nosy and she's perceptive, far more perceptive than I am.
It sounds like you really determined who she was. It wasn't the people who wrote the scripts. You decided the woman's character.
They gave me the outline. They absolutely did. They filled her in to a certain extent. But I find that male writers, as a whole, don't know how to write women. Therefore, you have to put that in yourself. And I did. I used to fight and squabble and get on their backs about writing her as a real person. Sorry, I didn't get this back to you sooner, Seth. But she was athletic. She was fun. She wasn't a prude. She was outgoing. She was private. She was everything.
Did you think that you were becoming a role model for older women in this country?
I realized it when I pulled myself together, lost quite a lot of weight, started dressing Jessica in a more stylish way, that women were beginning to watch what I was wearing and were excited by the fact, knowing my age, that I had managed to bring this off.
And you were so successful.
We were totally successful. Not only that, but my agreement with CBS was that I would always be on at 8 o'clock on Sunday night.
By contract?
Actually, apparently it was never put into words, and it was never on paper, which I can fault some people for, but I won't. However, they did move us, and I was just shocked and terribly unhappy and very mad, all of those things.
And with good reason. The show fell from a secure top 10 position to finish its last year in 57th place. So after 12 seasons, 264 episodes, and 286 murders, it was over.
The letters, the faxes, the wires, the outcry was so enormous that I had to sort of take a piece in the New York Post and write a letter to the public to say,
I think you know I have always held you, our audience, in the highest regard. And believe me, I shared your disappointment in the way things turned out. Even today, when you ask her, she can barely talk about it. It's that hurtful to you. I really didn't know. But she has no trouble talking about the early days. Angela Lansbury was born in England, where her mother, an actress, encouraged her interest in theater. Just weeks before the Nazis bombed London, her mother managed to get her and her 2 brothers to safety in Canada. She was alone. Your father had died.
Mm-hmm. And we had really had no money at that point, or the bottom had fallen out of our income. So we were really starting off like immigrants, you know.
In 1942, Angela followed her mother to Hollywood and began auditioning. At 17, she got a part in the Ingrid Bergman classic, Gaslight.
Suppose the master comes back and asks where you've gone.
Well, tell him I just went for a walk.
By yourself, Mum?
But while she got an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress her first time out, she would never be offered the leading lady roles she longed for. Instead, she was Elizabeth Taylor's older sister in National Velvet. In Blue Hawaii, she played Elvis Presley's mother. He was 26. She was only 35.
He was a young Southern gentleman in those days, but he still wiggled his hips. Handsome.
She did become one of Hollywood's great character actresses. In The Manchurian Candidate, she was the diabolical mother who orders her son, played by Lawrence Harvey, to assassinate a presidential nominee.
One last step. And then when I take power, they will be pulled down and ground into dirt for what they did to you. And what they did in so contemptuously underestimating me.
That part gave her a 3rd Academy Award nomination. But as she herself says, she always played beastly women, never the leading lady.
I didn't think of myself as being pretty or beautiful, certainly not that. I was absolutely surrounded at MGM with beautiful little girls, you know, all small, cute, perky, delightful. Somebody once said that I had a face like a bread pudding with black widows for eyes.
I have pictures of you then. You were gorgeous. If I saw this picture, I wouldn't say, let's have her be the mean woman in the movie. I'd say, hey, but let's look at her to be the glamour girl who gets the guy and gets to kiss him on screen.
Yeah, never did, never did.
But did it bother you?
Yes, it did. It did. It rankled because I was just still young enough to want to be like everybody else.
But it wasn't in the cards. So she left Hollywood and moved to Broadway and finally got the part she had longed for.
Coax the blues right out of the horn.
As Mame, she became Broadway's biggest star.
The fella you want to be is three-dimensional, soaking up life down to your toes.
She seemed to come out of nowhere. A dancer, a singer, a comedian, a Tony Award winner. But then a devastating setback. When Mame was made into a film in 1974, the role she had created went to Lucille Ball.
Big disappointment. Big, dashing hopes disappointment.
I didn't want to work on the film. I was so hurt by it.
Oh, Jerry Herman wrote the music and lyrics for Mame. So why didn't she get to do the movie?
Because Hollywood uses what they think is going to be a big box office star. Whether the person's right for the role or not is not important. And so the movie didn't work.
I think it points up something that I've always felt about the movie community in this town. I don't think they've ever, to this day, really known how to use me. I cannot get arrested in the movie business. I really cannot. I cannot get a job in a movie.
Well, wait, you did Beauty and the Beast?
Oh, Beauty and the Beast, but that was just my voice.
All right, Chip, now that'll do. Slowly now, don't spill.
If you stand back and you first look at your career in the movies, where you had these great roles, but damn, they would never give you that leading lady part. You go to Broadway, and you are the biggest thing on Broadway, and they won't give you the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then you come into television, and you are the biggest thing on television, and they take it away from you.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 times.
It is curious, isn't it? I always sort of felt I was sort of a well-kept secret from the people who sort of held the strings. The audience who watched knew, They knew. But the people who actually held the strings and provided the money really never knew what they had on their hands.
You once told TV Guide, I used to be champing at the bit because I didn't have control.
Not awful. I sound like a controlling woman. I often wonder when I read about Hillary and Elizabeth Dole and all these women, I say to myself, am I one of these controlling women? And I'm not.
But when she was finally a big success on Murder, She Wrote, she did want to control the show. So first she brought in reinforcements. She hired her brother, her son, her stepson, and husband for top jobs. Then, after 8 seasons, she cast herself as executive producer.
One favor, do me a favor.
After that, TV Guide named her one of the 10 most powerful stars in television. She was also named the #1 best loved. Actors have reputations for being prima donnas, for being difficult, for stomping off sets, for breaking furniture.
Those aren't the real actors, I've got to tell you right here and now. Now, forget that. Real people who have real talent, who have earned their stars, do not do those things. I'm sorry. It is only people who have no self-confidence and no real talent who indulge in that kind of ridiculous behavior. I have no time for it whatsoever. It's ridiculous when you consider what these people are being paid. I have no patience for them. Out.
When Murder, She Wrote was canceled, she retreated to the garden behind her home in Los Angeles.
I also love to grow the odd vegetable, so these are tomatoes, which...
After just a few months, the untemperamental Angela Lansbury made up with CBS. She agreed to make several Murder, She Wrote specials for the network, and one more thing.
That's the way it goes on Avenue A.
This Christmas, she will be in a new musical for television. Angela Lansbury as Mrs. Santa Claus, with music and lyrics by Jerry Herman.
I'm Mrs. Santa Claus, the invisible wife.
And Mrs. Santa Claus needs a change in her life.
A lot of people would say, okay, I'm 70, I've done it, great career, fabulous career. It's time to take a little rest. Not you, not even close.
It's curious, isn't it? I mean, I really feel I have as much energy, certainly in the morning, as I ever have had. Late afternoon, I start to fade a little, but one of Jerry's lyrics is wonderful. What is it? My bones are often racked up. They often act up each time it rains. But my arthritis and my phlebitis are simply growing pains. And that's the way I feel.
How comparison shopping can save you money. Tomorrow at 5.
Friendly, neutral Switzerland. The country that not only minds its own business, but can be counted on to mind yours if you park your money there. It turns out that friendly, neutral Switzerland helped the Nazis finance their brutal war by trading in Nazi gold, looted from the countries they conquered. Gold that was later transferred to Swiss banks. And since then, the charge is that Swiss banks have continued to profit at the expense of the Nazis' victims, among them Jews all across Europe who, fearing Hitler's rise, tried to save at least some of their wealth by opening secret bank accounts in Switzerland. Israel Singer, the Secretary General of the World Jewish Congress, is determined to do something about it.
We know that Jews, thousands upon thousands of Jews, as the war clouds were coming, deposited money in Swiss banks as the only safe haven for their money in the hope that they would get out and be able to get their money back because Switzerland was a neutral country.
And a lot of them died, a lot of them didn't get out.
And the Swiss bankers have held on to this money.
The Holocaust victims are entitled to an accounting.
What finally forced the Swiss bankers to come to grips with the controversy was an aggressive campaign by New York Senator Alphonse D'Amato and the World Jewish Congress, plus a mass of newly declassified documents that researchers turned up in the U.S. National Archives. Documents that dealt with a top-secret spy operation run by the Allies during World War II. It was known as Operation Safe Haven. Its chief goal was to monitor the shady financial dealings between the Swiss banks and the Nazis. Among them, memos revealing how top Nazi officials had hidden huge personal accounts in Swiss banks, plus a series of documents, page after page, listing hundreds of Jewish families who had accounts in Swiss banks back in 1941.
From the very, very beginning, when we found these documents, we knew that we finally had proof to go with the allegations that so many survivors and their families had been making over a 50-year period, and the Swiss banks had been stonewalling them all these years. This was a real opportunity to confront those bankers with facts for the first time.
In an extraordinary accommodation, the super-secret Swiss bankers have now agreed to set up a commission to investigate the charges.
Headed by Mr. Volcker, the former chairman of the Federal Reserve.
Who else is on this eminent commission?
There are 3 appointees from the Jewish side and 3 from the Swiss side. And we basically are going to choose an auditing firm that is going to go into Swiss banks despite the Swiss secrecy laws and try to find out whether the Swiss indeed have accounts that have not been accounted for.
2 of the thousands of people trying to locate their Swiss bank accounts are Charles and Sabine Sonnabend. Born in Belgium, their father, Simon Sonnabend, had built up a sizable fortune importing Swiss watches for sale at home and abroad. But in 1942, the Sonnabend family decided to flee Nazi-occupied Belgium, for Jews there began to face deportation to a place in Poland called Auschwitz.
We went into hiding some time before we found a smuggler to take us to Switzerland.
And that was what? Safe haven over there, I suppose.
Yes, we thought so.
They thought so.
All we asked is shelter from the Swiss people.
But like many other Jews who sought sanctuary here in Switzerland, the Sonnabends were arrested and told they were to be deported to Nazi-occupied France, even though the fate that awaited them there was well known.
They didn't even want to keep us as children.
Their parents were immediately shipped off by rail to perish in Auschwitz.
Yes, my father.
The children survived the war with a Jewish family in Paris. Afterwards, in 1946, Sabine returned to Switzerland to try to find the bank account her father had told her about.
He told me that he had an account in Switzerland, but he didn't tell me where, he didn't tell me how much, nothing.
So, what did you try to do about getting the assets back from the Swiss?
I just went and everybody said that there was nothing. And they all denied having had anything from my father, or knowing the name, or having the name written anywhere.
Okay. So what did you do?
Nothing. I couldn't do anything about it.
Later, she tried once again through an attorney.
My lawyer in Germany wrote to all the banks and never got one single answer.
They never bothered to answer?
They never even bothered to answer.
But then, a few months ago, the Sonnabends got hold of something that very few other such families have. The name of a specific bank. A Swiss reporter dug up a document indicating that after having seized the Sonnabend family's suitcases back in 1942, the Swiss police had found some money inside. And that money was then deposited in a branch of the Cantonal Bank of Bern to an already existing account belonging to Simon Sonnabend.
And that suddenly gave us a clue as to which bank had my father's account.
So Charles Sonnabend, with his wife, went to Switzerland, and he presented the newly found document to an official of the Cantonal Bank of Bern.
When I showed him the police report, he said, yes, that is quite seems right, but we have no record of your account. To which I said, well, I thought that in Switzerland people deposited money because you were safe in the knowledge that the money would be kept for you, and wherever you turn up again, you'll find it. But he said they have no record.
Today we can say there's no account in the name of Sonnabend. If there had been any assets in his name, we would have found them.
Hans-Peter Merz represents the Cantonal Bank, which has now arranged to bring in an outside auditor, the Arthur Anderson firm, at their own expense, to prove to Mr. Sonnabend that despite the document he has, They have no trace of any account.
It does seem strange, and if it happened to the son of Ben, then one wonders, well, maybe it happened to hundreds or thousands of others. That for one reason or another, suddenly a Jewish Holocaust victim's bank account disappears.
All I can say is that we took this search very seriously. And I can say there is no account now in the name of Taliban.
Fact is, the Swiss bankers have long claimed that after doing their own audit of all bank accounts that might have belonged to Holocaust victims, so-called dormant accounts, with money in them but no transactions for at least the past 10 years, they have finally come up with a number.
Well, they're saying $32 million in 775 dormant accounts. That's all the Swiss have come up with up to now. You find that difficult to believe?
It cannot be true.
It's much more than that. Of course it's much more.
The Swiss bankers are lying.
But many with whom we talked in Switzerland are skeptical that this latest audit the Swiss bankers have agreed to undertake with the World Jewish Congress will uncover any huge hidden fortunes, because they say most of these bank accounts in Switzerland may not have been opened in the names of the real depositors, but rather in the names of third parties, so-called fiduciaries, lawyers or accountants, trustees in effect, and those third parties ran the accounts and other assets in their own names.
And conceivably that lawyer or that accountant decided your father had gone to Auschwitz, therefore he would take it for himself.
Everybody took for granted that we would all disappear and they could just help themselves.
Is it likely, Mr. Mertz, that perhaps a third party made the deposit for Sonnabend and had access to that account, and that that third party simply took the money out, and 10 years after that money was taken out, all records were destroyed?
This is a possibility. According to Swiss law, Swiss banks must preserve business correspondence and accounting records for a period of 10 years. For this reason, it's impossible to reconstruct any transaction which took place 40 or 50 years ago.
What you seem to be saying is that if somebody came along and took that money out, no matter who it was, then the real heirs to that money are out of luck.
Yes.
If they really have destroyed all the papers, how can anybody find out?
And now a new development. A 76-year-old Holocaust survivor, Gisela Weishaus, who lives in New York, and her attorney, Edward Fagan, have brought a class-action lawsuit against all the Swiss banks on behalf of Holocaust survivors and their heirs. And they're not going to wait, they say, for the report of any special commissions.
These people are dying off. The more of them that die, the more money the Swiss banks get to keep.
The amount they've brought suit for? $20 billion.
Now, a federal judge sitting in Brooklyn who can reach out and touch these banks has the ability to compel them to disclose the information.
Why does he have that ability to reach out and touch these bankers?
Because they conduct business in the state of New York.
In fact, their New York branches are vital for their international operations. But the suit is not just over missing Swiss bank accounts. Rather, it is a catch-all for the reported billions of dollars of treasure the Nazis looted from the countries and the peoples that they conquered, plus gold jewelry and even the gold fillings torn from the teeth of concentration camp victims. All of this melted down by the Nazis and turned into gold bars, and much of this, the suit alleges, also wound up in Swiss banks. And it's clear that Swiss bankers enabled Nazi Germany to use such looted gold to purchase vitally needed war supplies from other neutral countries.
Switzerland bought its neutrality by its dealings with the Nazi government. Switzerland acquired a great amount of wealth from people and never returned it. The Swiss banks, they're the ones that are responsible for this.
The Swiss banks categorically reject all such accusations, and say that they'll apply to have the suit dismissed. But Attorney Fagan says his office has now been inundated by 3,000 other claimants who have asked to join in the class action suit. Meanwhile, the Swiss people, especially the younger generations, have been shaken by the spate of revelations about their country's World War II past, the missing bank accounts, Switzerland's apparent connivance with the Nazis. So much so that the lower house of the Swiss parliament has now voted unanimously to set up its own special commission to investigate and report on all these questions. The upper house is due to follow in December. But Foreign Minister Flavio Cotti is upset by the continued attacks from abroad accusing Switzerland of having been nothing but a fence for the Nazis.
We resent certain of the accusations because they are giving a bad image to Switzerland.
Yes, and therefore I hope that this report will be made as completely as possible and as soon as possible. Switzerland is at least as interested to clarifying this difficult period of its history than the other countries appealing now Switzerland to do.
It occurs to me that the Swiss are more forthcoming, perhaps, than either you or Mrs. Weishaupt believe.
Well, that could be a function of their openness now and their honesty, which would be nice, or it could also be a function of the fact that they've been painted into a corner and there's very little room to move. What do you want them to do? What do you think they're going to do? They're going to get nailed. They're going to get nailed either in the lawsuit, or they're going to get nailed by the World Jewish Congress, or they're going to get nailed by Senator D'Amato. They've got nowhere to go but admit to what they did.
Well, Carlo Iacmetti, the Swiss ambassador to Washington, was willing to acknowledge in a press conference 4 days ago that, from a human point of view, some real mistakes were made by the Swiss bankers. The ambassador went on to say that his government now has a total commitment to determine just what happened. But he said the $20 billion figure that Holocaust survivors and their families are trying to recover in their class action lawsuit is wildly exaggerated, and that the real amount involved is likely to prove far less than that. Our story last week about Columbia HCA and its efforts to buy Blue Cross Blue Shield of Cleveland, Ohio, brought an angry letter from the CEO of the National Association of Blue Cross Blue Shield Plans. The deal between Columbia HCA and the Cleveland plan is in clear violation of our licensing standards and demonstrates a blatant disregard for the quality and consistency represented by the Blue Cross and Blue Shield brands. If this transaction proceeds as proposed, we will strip the Cleveland plan of its license to use the Cross and Shield. Also in the mail this week was a letter about Andy Rudy's suggestion last week that American citizens be forced to leave the U.S. if they can't answer the same questions asked of immigrants who want to become citizens. Andy asked, who is Chief Justice of the Supreme Court? But the proper question is, who is Chief Justice of the United States? For that is the actual title of the office. Will Andy be leaving by boat or plane? Actually, Andy isn't going anywhere. He'll be here in a moment when we return. The presidential election won't be held until Tuesday, but Andy's ready with his analysis.
If Senator Dole loses next Tuesday, he says it'll be because reporters are liberal and were unfair to him. Well, if Bob Dole loses this election, it will not be because of the liberal media. And I concede the media is, more often than not, liberal. Bob Dole will probably lose for several reasons that may be unfair, but not because of an unfair media. First, things are going pretty good. Unemployment is down, we aren't at war, and the economy's humming along. Some of the credit should go to George Bush, but that's not the way it works. Clinton gets the credit. Dole isn't doing well for other reasons. He has a dour personality. He sounds negative, critical, and pessimistic. So do I, but I'm not running for president. Clinton sounds bright, cheery, and optimistic. Americans have accepted Bill Clinton in spite of his shortcomings. They know he's done some fooling around, and they aren't casting the first stone. And if he doesn't love his wife, and if she doesn't love him, it's a great act they put on. I feel bad about Dole because I like him, and he blew it. When this thing started, I thought I might vote for him. I was uneasy about Clinton. Dole was capable, experienced, and my age. Senator Dole claims the media ignored things that would make President Clinton look bad. Well, the fact is, the media has done a better job detailing what's wrong with the Clinton administration than Bob Dole has. Dole gets most of his information about what's wrong with it from the reporters he criticizes. Attacking the media was a dumb thing for Dole to do, even if he was right. Sounds as though he thinks his bad showing so far is everyone's fault but his own. There has never been a politician who didn't think the media was out to get him. Of the millions of words written about Bill Clinton and Bob Dole, some of them certainly have been untrue or unfair, but out of the whole mess, some basic truths emerge, and voters have gotten to know these two men better than they know themselves. It may not make sense to you, but they seem to like Bill Clinton better than they like Bob Dole. We'll know late next Tuesday. Of course, if Dole wins, maybe the media won't report it.
I'm Morley Safer. We'll be back next week with another edition of 60 Minutes. Now here's Dan Rather with a preview of tomorrow night's CBS Evening News.
We'll introduce you to a woman who knows all about addiction.
I kicked cocaine. I kicked alcohol. I kicked Librium. I can't kick nicotine.
Last year, only 5% of American smokers who tried to quit actually quit. What is it about nicotine? New research on